Hi, guys. This is Carlin Liborio, and I just wanted to take a few minutes to share some insights that I have learned recently on the rubric for the ECR, the Extended Constructed Response for third to fifth grade. So, this rubric is public knowledge. This can be found on the TEA website, or you could just do a search on Google for STAAR, TEA rubric informational, and it should pop up. I'll also include it in the links on the video, and I will include some other links as well. So I just kind of wanted to quickly show you some things that I have learned from going to Austin this weekend or not this weekend, this week. And we really analyzed the rubric, and it really gave me some insights as a teacher. I feel like I walked away understanding the rubric on a much deeper level. So, since this is public knowledge, they did let us know that we are allowed to share anything that's public, and the rubric is public. So, one of the things that I noticed that was a good thing, a positive thing, is that they tended to grade what the student did well. So they really focused on a holistic grading. They looked at the whole picture and really tried to focus on what did the student do well. So that was a nice, pleasant surprise. I also think that they got credit for things that in the past, if you've been a fourth grader for a while and you were here when we had expository, oftentimes they would get a 0 even if they were trying. So I feel like even if they're giving an effort and they're at least answering the question, it seems like they're at least getting credit for that. And those are not getting zeros. Okay, so score point three. The biggest thing about a score point three is I want you to look where it says right here, the third bullet point. It says the response reflects a thorough understanding of the writing purpose. So that's the biggest difference. With a three, it is a thorough understanding. So it's a strong essay. It's not perfect. It does not lose focus, and it has a clear beginning and end. That is the thing that we really looked at with the threes. Does it have to be long? Not necessarily. It's really more based on how they write it and if they include their support and evidence along with answering the question. So if they've done that and they have a good structure and they have the proof, then they can get a 3. And then if you look down at the 2, there's a sentence at same thing, same place in the third bullet point. It says the response reflects partial understanding of the writing response. So the key word with the first one was thorough understanding. A 2 is partial understanding. So the twos, and this is a 2 out of 3 for organization. So the twos might jump around, they might go off topic and then come back on topic. They might not have a logical organization, but they do answer the question. They do have a central idea. They do have text evidence. They might not explain it very well, or they might explain it some, but they're on the right track. So it's a student that includes some support or some explaining. You might have to go back and reread it, but they're on the right track, and that would include partial understanding. And you can go into these bullet points, and I would recommend just really highlighting all of these different parts. And they did say that it's not a checklist, so it doesn't necessarily have to hit every bullet point. You really need to look at it holistically and think which category, the 2 or the 3 or the 1 or the 0, which does it mostly fit with? But you can't do it like a checklist, is what they said. Okay, so now we're going to look at the ones. So a 1, it says limited understanding. So thorough, partial, limited. So limited understanding means it's not developed, it's not logical, it tried to support a claim, it might have the central idea, it might, but it's not supported. And it might be off topic, it might have evidence that's not relevant, it might have some evidence that's copied but without explaining at all, but it at least has a central idea. So that would be a 1. And then a 0 is lack of understanding. So it says right here, lack of understanding of the writing purpose. So lack of understanding means it's vague, it the central idea is weak or does not answer the question, and it does not have any support to back that up either. So the details are either copied or they're weak, and the central idea is weak or doesn't answer the question, or they just gave like a summary of the passage instead of really answering the question. So I think it's pretty hard to get a 0. To get a 0, you really have to answer the question wrong, and because there were some that I think the central idea wasn't very clear, but if they backed it up with their evidence and their explaining, and that went back to the answer to the question, then they still could have gotten a 1 or even a 2, depending on the response. So I think that to get a 0, it really has to have no understanding of the prompt. Like, they went off in left field, they completely answered a different question, and they don't have anything to back it up. So that would be a 0. Um, so I hope that helps. And then really quick, I'm gonna go over the conventions. So for conventions, even if they have a central idea, they could have gotten a 1. And then you would look, so if they only had the central idea, that would be, let's say they just had, 1 or 2 sentences. That could still be a 1 for organization, but then for conventions, that would also probably be a 1 just because it doesn't have enough to go on to give it anything higher. So they have to write at least, you know, depending on the prompt, of course, but they have to write enough for the scores to accurately assess the conventions. So if they are writing enough and they in order to get a 2 for conventions, which is the highest for that category, they have to have a consistent command. So they can have a few errors, but you can still understand it. A 1 is inconsistent command. So that means you can understand it, but you might have to stop. You might have to go back and reread parts. It might have several errors with capitalization, punctuation, and spelling. So this one, it makes you stop. The 0 is you really have to stop and go back and reread a lot. And that one, the difference between the 1 and the 0 is the 0, you really can't understand it. It has a lot of run-ons. It might have subject verb agreement, lots of spelling and capitalization and punctuation errors. So the 0 just really looks like they have, like it says, little to no command. The 1 means you can understand it, but you have to stop. And then the 2 would be just a few errors, but it doesn't impact the clarity of the writing. And that was something we kept going back to on the rubric is does it impact the clarity? I would say that run-ons and subject verb agreement are weighted heavier only because those do impact the clarity. If you're not putting periods and you're missing words, or the spelling is so bad that you can't even read the word, then that impacts the clarity. So those are the type of errors that we need to really focus on, are the ones that impact the clarity. If it's a big word that's spelled wrong and you can still read it with a little tiny misspelling, that's not going to impact the clarity. So I hope that gives you some clarification on the rubric and how they are looking at scoring it. All right, hope you enjoyed this video. I'll put some links in the description. Thanks. Bye.